Blue Antler is a liminal place. A place where knowledge lies in sun-filled meadows, and wisdom slumbers in the deepest shadows of the forest. Profound inner knowing comes when we touch the unknown. Our unions with the mysteries drive us onward. Our liminal conversations explore the lives of those who have touched the unknown. What was it like to experience the mysteries? How did they discover their path? Join my search for whispered secrets and hidden wisdom. Who knows? It may help you discover your path. Welcome everyone to Blue Antler, Whispered Secrets and Hidden Wisdom, a Discover Your Path podcast. I'm Ken, the Rune Walker, your host. I am also the host of Rune Walking in Modern Times, a podcast about my experiences in relationship with the runes of Northern Europe, as well as co-host of Psychic Medium, the podcast, with my good friend and brilliant psychic medium, Kelly, the spiritual messenger of Source and Spirit. I've been thinking about my first tryst, I love that word, with the mysteries. And I'm not sure when that was. I do know that I felt there was something more during summer days with my dad when we would go up into the mountains to collect firewood for the winter. We would go up on top of a mountain that we called Baldy because it's bald and there's nothing on top. There's no trees. And I just knew that as I played in the meadow, as I played under the trees, as I played in the ravines where water had washed out the dirt, that there was something more than the life I was living, although at the time I don't remember or recall thinking about that. But I remember there was something more than my house and my family and my dog and my television and the cars. So I would have to say that that was my first connection to the mysteries. My goal with the podcast is to share my experiences as well as the life experiences of the people I speak to. Specifically, I want to know what it's like for them to touch the mysteries. I want to know how that has changed them. I want to know how that affects their day-to-day life. I want to know I just want to know. And I think that's a healthy part of my path. So, I grew up Mormon. In one of the upcoming podcast episodes with my friend Andy, we talk a little bit more about what that was like, and we talk a little bit about feeling the mysteries within that religion and that way of being. And I'll leave that for episode 3. But I had to think back and look for times when I felt the mysteries in that religion. And I felt connected for sure, connected to the people around me, the people in my very small community in rural Utah. And I don't really remember feeling the mysteries as I experience them now. I left that religion, when I was 21, 22, and it just didn't seem to fit. And that's okay. For a long time, I kind of cruised through life. I toyed with the idea of Wicca and tarot cards, all very, very briefly, and it just didn't feel right. Um, I didn't feel the spark. I didn't feel the pull. I didn't feel the enamorment with looking into those things further, like I felt when I experienced the mysteries and the connection in my childhood in the mountains, in the forest. They didn't pique my interest. Maybe that's a very good way to describe it. One day, after moving to Portland, Oregon, I, at the time, was in a relationship, dating someone who had a very strong spiritual path, had a very dedicated path, had a very, the word would be disciplined path. I very much connect myself to fire. I am a fire sign. If you look into that zodiac, um, Aries, Sagittarius, with my moon in Pisces. So I am very free flowing and do not love rules and do not love containers or boxes. So for a long time, that passion and that flow probably worked against me in finding and being able to kind of ground or anchor into one specific idea or religion or spirituality, however we want to put it. So one day, after moving to Portland and now being involved with someone who was deeply spiritual, I went to the New Renaissance bookstore. And it just so happened that that day, there was a woman there doing readings. If you would like to hear more about that, the specifics of that experience, you can look into Rune Walking in Modern Times podcast, and the episodes with Ingrid Kincaid contain that information. Ingrid was the woman that I met. In that moment of experiencing the runes and her connection to that part of my ancestry, that part of my tapestry, that part of my weird, I began to feel and sense the mysteries as I had sensed them as a child. That began now a lifelong path. Reconnecting is the wrong word. Remembering the ways, relationships, ideas, wisdom, knowledge, worldview of that part of my ancestry. the part that I, in this lifetime, have been told I am dedicated to, and I'm okay with that. It led me to evenings after dark, sitting in front of a mirror with lit candles, writing on the mirror with a dry erase marker the rune that I had pulled that day, the rune that I had invited into my space to share its wisdom and its knowledge, and to show me where in my body that wisdom is stored and held, and how to access it. From there, everything unfolded and continues to unfold. That has brought me to boundaries I have accepted or set for myself that no longer contain or are too small to contain the experiences that I'm having, or the experiences I would like to have. I began really looking at the psychic medium concept after I had set this barrier for myself that reading the runes and those things having to do with the northern traditions of pre-Christian Northern Europe had nothing to do with all of the New Age talk or jargon, ideas of psychics and mediums and all of that stuff that I considered to be kind of fluffy. I got slapped real quick with the concept of how do I identify or describe my experiences without using those terms. And you just can't. I haven't been able to yet. That may be a lifelong journey for me to figure out new language or remember the old language in a way that works. So that was a really interesting time in my life, that fight between what is woo-woo and new agey and still very appropriate and descriptive of the experiences I'm having, and the fact that they are those things. So it was a bit of a struggle for quite a while. That, once I took down the boundary and just accepted, things began to flow much better. I remember one instance where a friend of mine, who is a brilliant Celtic shaman and therapist, during one of our sessions said to me, I'm going to need you to actually acknowledge and accept that you're a witch. I had a moment of, what the fuck are you talking about? Vikings can't be witches. Kind of idea, still very much entrenched in my programming from the hierarchy of Christianity, even as it appears today in our concept and perception of Viking Age peoples from Northern Europe. It took me a couple days, and it actually took an event that happened at one of our local canyons, where witches were blamed for ritual, I don't know. They interpreted it as a ritual altar and sacrifice. I said a witch would never just leave it like that, so it wasn't a witch. Which is then when I realized, okay, all of the resistance I'm experiencing in life is coming from my resistance to labels, which I've always had. I thought, let's try something different. I said to myself, I am a witch. As I said that, I began to feel an acceptance of the things I had also been pushing away that were not accepted in my small community. At that point, the label seemed, how do I put this? It was like I put the t-shirt on with the graphic across the front that said witch, and then that somehow absorbed into me and then was no longer a box, but a part. Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. From there, it was a long list of labels that now that I knew how to work with them, I worked through them. Still doing it today, by the way. We all still do it. It wasn't too long after that I found, because I was longing for a more centralized group with information, processes, rituals that was centered in the Northern traditions, where I was able to also have my own experiences accepted. We call it UPG, unverifiable personal gnosis. That means it's something that you just know, but you can't really find in any of the histories or of the books. I know that part of that was probably from my upbringing and the desire to have the book to reference, which always makes it much easier. It's much harder when you have to remember through lived experience, through relationship with deities, through relationship with your ancestors and the land, the things that have been forgotten. Yeah, forgotten. I found a group, and it took me a little while to apply to the apprenticeship program. The group's goal is to help train and cultivate spirit workers or shamans that are capable and that work within the tradition of Anglo-Saxon or Norse cosmologies. That appealed to me because that was everything I was feeling and thinking. And part of that, yes, provided me with the structure, and also a structure of having other people doing the same work I was doing or same things I was doing, that then moved into us being able to corroborate our experiences with, deities or the runes or whatnot, and give some confidence, not some, to give more confidence to what we were doing. So I am constantly, in this point in time, seeking experiences with the mysteries and other people's experiences with the mysteries. one of my favorite things to do, even now, is watch how people's psychic gifts work. I don't know how to describe it other than I can experience how it works, and sometimes it's a like an image in my brain. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it can express itself in many different ways. But I love watching that. I love watching that dance. So I then became an apprentice in the program. Now, you can be a shamanic practitioner, and you can be a spirit worker, and you can be a shaman. Shamans are not everyone is meant to be a shaman. Not everyone is meant to be that for the community or a community. Not everyone is wired that way. And in fact, it can be quite dangerous. You can fail at the process of initiation and ordeal work. And that result is, if you're lucky, it's death, because all the other things that can get fucked up are worse, I think, sometimes. And I knew that there was a not deeper, well, yes, deeper, but a different calling for me than just to be a shamanic practitioner. After years of study and working, I was faced with my initiation. That happened September 2022. Wow. But not after, purification, cleansing, hard things. I'm not talking just about COVID. For those of you who maybe are new to the show and haven't listened to the other shows, I moved in 2019 to Oregon, and my mom passed away unexpectedly March of 2020 with the onset of COVID right at that same time. I moved back to live with my dad and help, just make sure he was okay. And in October of that year, I was diagnosed with cancer and ended up having to have 20% of my tongue removed. My dad was diagnosed with melanoma in February or March of 2021. And we went through the cancer process with him as well. So leading up to my initiation in 2022, there was a lot of just shit that just happened, and that's kind of how it goes. So the mysteries aren't just free. I'm gonna say that there is always an exchange necessary for what we do. Things become a little different. The rules change when you become a shaman and when you make commitments in that aspect. So now I work within the shamanic guild, and I work with new students there. I work with students outside of that. And I love I love facilitating experiences where people can be introduced to the runes or to themselves, introduced to the mysteries. We felt it. We know what the mysteries feel like because it's not quite tangible. It's not quite explainable, which makes it a mystery. I know. I did not I was not lost on that concept. But we know it. We know it, but we can't explain it. How about that? And I love watching people develop and their paths kind of unfold. I don't see a path as a road. I see a path as a compass and a map key, so that when we sit down or when we land somewhere, we have the tools to engage with, and we know how we're going to engage with our surroundings. So the path is not about walking anywhere, has no destination. The path is, how am I going to interact with the world and the things around me right now, seen and unseen? I feel like that's good for now. Our other episodes are tending to be about an hour, 55 minutes-ish. And the ones that have been recorded so far, I think you're going to like. There's some really interesting experiences and interesting perspectives. And I look forward to sharing them with you in the coming months. Blue Antler Whispered Secrets and Hidden Wisdom, a Discover Your Path podcast, is going to be distributed during the month of May, then June and July, as part of a whole year schedule of podcasts. If you're new to this, please feel free to look up Psychic Medium, the podcast. It has a really cool purple background, and I really thank you, Canva, for helping me get that done. That podcast has been going for 4 seasons, and that podcast will be distributed January, February, March, taking a break. Then Blue Antler podcast will be May, June, July. And then Rune Walking in Modern Times will be published in September, October, November. We have a whole year of podcasts coming from me and the people that I know, which is really cool. The other 2 podcasts were so specific to topic, and I'd been invited to be on several podcasts that weren't as specific as my 2. And I really loved exploring these things with other people in a broader spectrum, which is why Blue Antler Whispered Secrets and Hidden Wisdom came into being. I like hearing and helping share people's stories surrounding their life and how the mysteries work in their life. So I hope you will enjoy the podcast as much as I do. And I hope the stories that are shared here will be inspirational and help you to maybe discover a little bit more of your very own path.